Good. Okay. Expectation, anticipation versus expectation. Okay. So I want to talk about what the difference is, what you consider the difference is, but more importantly, how it affects your way of day-to-day living.
Okay.
So when you hear, if I were to ask you, how can I practice living from a space of anticipation versus expectation, how would you describe the difference?
Well, I find both of them to be almost double-edged swords. They both require balance with one another, in my opinion. That if you were to leave off anticipation and just purely live in expectation, there's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of disappointment that would happen when you live in anticipation versus expectation. If you were to just leave off the expectation, um, again, there would be a lot of disappointment. But when you blend the two, there's a balance of energy where you can anticipate things before they happen to a degree. To a degree, we're not talking about being prophets and fortune tellers. Talking about realizing that we're all human, realizing that you yourself are human, and in that you're not always going to be on your A game. So when you can anticipate that, but expect from yourself. So if we're talking about the self and not necessarily anybody else, because you can't change anybody else and you can't control anybody else and you can't control any situation. But what you can do is anticipate and expect from yourself and how you're going to react and who you're going to be, or at least try to be, should this or something else happen.
So what's resonating for me when you say that is, we can't control. It's often our way of wanting to control so much. And I only say this because, again, recovering perfectionist, like, wow.
Hi, my name is Shala. I'm a recovering perfectionist and procrastinator.
But the thing that came up for me when you were talking is, you can't control what's going to happen. You can't control what someone's going to do or how you're going to feel. But what you can control is your reaction to it. And the reason I'm finding this very, very important is because the holidays were really tough. I think holidays are subconsciously really, really stressful for the majority of people. And it's because there is so much expectation around what the experience is supposed to be. So as I'm sitting in my little psychoanalytical brain, like spinning, I just really dove into what's the difference between, like, what is the holiday like for a child versus an adult? And it's completely different in the fact that children anticipate. They live from an anticipatory state of being, right? Like, Santa Claus is going to come on Christmas. They don't know what the hell they're going to get.
Yeah,
or like what it does,
they're like so excited.
They're anticipating it, and like it's just great. Where as adults, I feel like there's some expectation of, like, it needs to be like this. This is what needs to be served. This is the amount of time I have to do. And even with gifts, we're expecting, like, I gave you a list. This is what I'm expecting to get. And in the realm of that, I guess what I'm trying to process and grow within for myself is because when you are such a perfectionist and a person that comes from a very busy family and, like, had everything dialed out and scheduled, like, I function off of making shit happen. And so as I'm trying to pull back so I can I can feel more, I can be more, I get nervous with anticipation, like struggling with fearing that if I only live from anticipation, because again, when we remove a lot of expectation, life is a lot easier. I'm way less anxious. I'm way less headspace and crazy. And I'm able to feel and see and experience and vibe with way more. So my concern, or the thing I want to address with you, is I'm just like spewing, is I almost get scared to be from a place of anticipation, because like you said, it's a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like as an adult, if I just anticipate, what if I don't put like a level on it? So then when or if something happens, I don't celebrate it to the right degree, I guess. And then I get disappointment from that aspect, right? So it's either expectations and then you're disappointed because shit goes wrong, or you're from an anticipation, and then what if you're not totally checked in and then you don't celebrate something
that is worth celebrating,
and then you're disappointed and feel guilty because you didn't.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for me?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, the internet went wonky at the very. What advice do I have for?
Just how do you help that? How do you find the balance in co-creating that?
So first of all, presence is a big one.
Of course.
Of course. So being in the here and now versus what's happening next week, what's happening, what am I hoping for from this meeting in 2 hours? What am I hoping for when I meet this client? What am I hoping for? What am I expecting? What am I anticipating? All of these things, I feel they clutter the here and now. And when you're present, what is happening to you and for you right now in this moment helps clear most of that. Because like I said earlier, you can't control a situation, you can't control other people. And like you said, you can control your reaction. Now, that isn't to say that you need to have a lockdown on your emotions, because your emotions are so important. And your first gut reaction is not always, and usually is not, the way you should react. That first gut reaction is just that. Just allow it to be. And then breathe and say, is that really how I want to move forward? Like, allow yourself to feel it and not act on it.
It's always about feels.
The feels, they're just, they guide you. They're a guidance system.
Wisdom.
There is so much guidance in your emotions. They are guiding you towards what is good for you and what is true for you and what is good for you versus what isn't so good for you. So if you feel angry or upset about something, that's your emotion saying, hey, we don't want that as a part of our life.
Which one do you struggle with more? Would you say you have a problem with this? Not even a problem, but do you feel like this?
Its effects on me?
Yeah.
Definitely. I wouldn't say that it affects me or to the degree that it used to. So a little story.
Here we go, folks.
A little story. So many years ago, when I was 13, we were headed to Egypt. And since I was young, like 6 or 7, I was obsessed with Egypt and Egyptology. I would read anything that I could about Egypt. I would watch all documentaries. So I was so excited to go to Egypt. I was anticipating it, and I had expectations around it as well.
Of course.
So how could you not? It's Egypt. So we got there, and it was not altogether horrible, but there were so many things that disappointed me to like a soul level, like truly, truly let me down in many different ways. From the food to communicating with people. I had such a hard time communicating. I speak Arabic, and the dialect was so different to me that I was just like, I understood like a third of your sentence. What are you saying? So on top of that, I had trouble like connecting with people. I had trouble connecting with the land. And then I found the Sphinx underwhelming because I had expectations. And then on top of that, I was sexually harassed on the streets. Like there was just so much happening in that 1 week that we were there. I was just like, I'm done. Like, and the biggest thing that I got from that was not to have expectations.
Well, and the thing you brought up too is a childhood, like as a parent, I guess, if you are watching and you are a parent, what energy or like principles are you establishing for your children? Because when we do live, I feel and I believe when we are living from a place of expectation, it's very surface. It's very feelless, and there's just, it's going to inhibit your child's experience to grow and evolve into becoming who they are supposed to be or here to be. So I guess my final takeaway for you is to just be radically aware of, am I living from expectation or anticipation? And it's not even more so, where can I be more anticipatory in my way of being? Because there's a lot of negative toward it. There's a lot of disinhibiting things that expectation brings us.
So on the flip side of that,
it's like here, we want to be down here.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that is we tend to hold expectations for situations, for people, but sometimes those expectations are not what we anticipate. Okay, so I'm going to explain it like this. So one of my friends went in and was having conversation with her coach, and she was like, I don't know why I don't have any clients right now, or I can't seem to connect into my clients. And she was like, or they're not following through with the action steps I gave them. And her coach said, well, what are you expecting? Like, what is your intention, first of all, for them? And she was like, well, I intend for them to do this and this and this. She said, well, what is your expectation? Do you actually expect them to do it or not? And she went, oh, I really actually don't expect them to follow through. I anticipate that they... Yeah. Like, so it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
The energy that you've got...
putting off.
Exactly. So you may be like, oh, I'm so ready for these people to do this. But then you take a deeper look, you realize, oh, I'm actually expecting them to like flat on their face fail. Like, how is that benefiting? Shit sandwich. How am I benefiting them, and how am I benefiting myself? And so by taking a deeper look and shifting that energy, she was able to move forward in such a completely different way, and actually have the energy moving out of expectation to be that they have got this. Whatever it is, they're capable of meeting it on their own and stepping up.
Intention, belief, and anticipation of whatever outcome to be true for them to occur.
Yep.
I love it.
So
awesome.
Talking about
any other things you'd like to touch on this topic?
Yes. So with energy, that's a big thing, is that the beliefs that you have going on within yourself attract the energy of what you're going to bring in. So your expectations, your anticipations, if you have got a belief that they won't actually happen, guess what? They're not going to actually happen. If you've truly got a belief that this is going to happen for you, it will. It may not happen immediately, but it will unfold in its time and place.
Agree. Hashtag delicious. Awesome.
So I don't know if we just made the conversation messier or cleaned it up a little bit, but I'm interested to see what everybody else got from this conversation. I feel like we opened up more questions than we answered, which is awesome in my opinion, because
it's one of those
that's our
things.
job.
Exactly.
We just ask more questions.
Questions, but it's more so even just in having conversation and asking questions, I fully, truly trust that whatever nugget, like, perked your ears or whatever you felt you needed to write down, that's what you needed to hear from this. Yep. Or that's a sign in which maybe you should take with you and kind of sit with for the next few days or the next few weeks or months, and to just trust it. Everything that perks us is given to us for a reason, and that we need to be present and mindful around what is the wisdom within this that can help me have a better experience of being.
Yeah. Cheese.